Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of the DenziBlitz, our Facebook first series here on Electric City Sentai DenziCaster. Remember, we're here every Wednesday morning on Facebook, and then you can check out the episode on YouTube 1 week later on Wednesday. In fact, DenziBlitz episode 1 just went up on YouTube a little bit earlier, just like literally a few minutes ago from the time I'm recording this. Today, we are continuing our trek through Tokusou Sentai Dekaranger. We are now through episode 12, which puts us just shy of a quarter of the way through the series. I'm hoping to get a few more episodes watched this week. We've done 6 for each of the first couple of weeks. These 6 episodes that I've watched up to this point, now going through episode 12, really, for the most part, just character focus episodes. And this is not unusual for Super Sentai shows or even Tokusatsu shows in general to have character focus episodes for a lengthy period of time. So usually maybe the first quarter to the first third of a series to flesh out the characters. Now, if we were watching it's hard to think of something that was in 2004 as not modern, but if we were watching a more modern Super Sentai show, then by this point we would have seen the 6th Ranger starting to show up, because they tend to bang those things out really quick. This series, back at this point anyway, they really took their time to develop the initial batch of characters first before introducing a new Ranger or a new 6th hero or what have you. So I really appreciate that. Not a whole lot to talk about content-wise for the episodes or overarching plot, because if there is a weakness to Dekaranger, it is that there is no apparent ultimate bad guy or ultimate plot or ultimate goal apparent early on. If you think back to shows like Zyuranger, which became Mighty Morphin, Queen Bandora / Rita Repulsa. Her whole plot line was well known from moment 1. After, X number of years, she's free and she's come to conquer Earth. How many years she was frozen or in a dumpster or imprisoned is all just dependent upon which show you're watching. In this show, at this stage of the game, by episode 6, or episode 12 rather, we're 6 episodes in for this week, it's pretty apparent that Agent Abrera is our central villain, or at least he's being set up as such. But they really keep him a mystery. His involvement in the series so far has been, for the most part, relegated to supporting the schemes of other criminals. So he's sort of a facilitator and an instigator. He doesn't actually step forward himself. The only thing that we have seen him do, and I think it's episode 11, is that we see him set up an assassination attempt on Doggy Kruger for reasons unknown. It has to be something beyond the fact that he's the commander of the Dekaranger Earth Branch. There's got to be some other rationale behind it, but what that is, we don't know yet. And Doggy Kruger himself acknowledges it in the same episode when he says, when he's asked who would want to assassinate you, and he says, "Well, I have an idea," basically. So we know that there's some story there, and it's something that I imagine. And like I said, I haven't watched this series in probably 10 years all the way through. So I'm fuzzy on the finish of the series and some of the plot points, which is cool because I'm getting to rediscover the series. But I'm sure it's something that closely mirrors, if you've watched Power Rangers SPD, it closely mirrors the Commander Kruger Emperor Grum relationship, where they have a history of one being the police officer and one being the criminal at some point earlier in the storyline. The episodes themselves, the focuses of those episodes, we've seen episodes focused on Bon, Deca Red. We've seen episodes focused on Sen, Deca Green, Hoji, Deca Blue, and Umiko, Deca Pink. And I want to talk about 2 of them in particular. Umiko and Hoji's focus episodes out of this batch. Episode 11 was Hoji's latest focus episode. One that gives you really a very good sense of the character, and it puts some of the show into perspective as to it really is a cop show. One of the things I have to give this show credit for, and I think this episode shows it very well with episode 11, is that if you are going to portray a police show and you are going to have policemen who are the elite cops who combat violent crimes, that means there must be violent stakes. And they do not hide the fact in this series that the monsters, some of which look incredibly cheesy, but it's a Super Sentai show, what you gonna do? The monsters are a legitimate threat that will kill people. Period. There are lives at stake that these police officers, these heroes, are going to have to stop, and they portray our characters in most episodes as policemen first, heroes second, which I think is pretty cool. If you're going to make the theme of the show police, then you pretty much have to do something like that. And I think the episode with Hoji helps really illustrate that. That's the episode where they try to assassinate Kruger. We also see that Hoji was at one point a very outgoing, fun-loving kind of guy. He had a best friend. He had a partner. And we see that his ideology as being a professional, which is a term he uses quite a lot early in the series. He is a professional. He doesn't think Bond is qualified to call himself a professional, these type things. It's very interesting to see that ideology kind of overran his outgoingness to a point. His want and desire to be the professional policeman has turned him into the character we see, and a lot of that gets solidified by the fact that his best friend didn't want to do that. His best friend becomes a mercenary, becomes a hitman for hire, and even uses the policeman's badge as a means to an end, as a means to try to assassinate Kruger and get in close. So I like that episode. I very much recommend watching that one and paying special attention to it. The following episode with Umiko, her focus episode, Deca Pink, her latest focus episode, has her basically become a surrogate mother. We wind up with ye old trope of the baby left on the doorstep, although in this case it's a space baby left in a park in a giant bassinet. And spotting Umiko, the baby believes that this is its mother and tries to kind of latch on to her. And we see Umiko get attached to the infant and want to see the infant protected and raised and so on. And basically, over the course of the episode, willingly become the surrogate mother. But one of the things I like about this episode is it does something that Dekaranger does quite often early on, which is it subverts certain Super Sentai tropes. One of those tropes being that you have to have the giant mecha fight at the end. Well, in this episode, the giant mecha shows up at the beginning. We see that Dekaranger Robo can serve as a rescue vehicle, and it actually is used to put out fires and searches and things like that. So it can be used for disaster relief. Imagine that. It's the giant robot of a police organization. Of course it has multiple uses like that. And another thing that I rather enjoy is that while there is a giant monster fight at the end, frankly, it's very abbreviated. It's basically Umiko running a train on a robot or an android that's trying to kidnap the kid on Agent Abrera's orders. But the giant monster in the episode really is the baby. They even almost pointed out pretty much on the nose when there's a mother changing her child's diaper in the same park where Umiko is with the space baby. And the mother says, well, children really are little monsters, sometimes, but that's why being a mother is a full-time job. That's why being a parent means so much. And so they kind of pointedly hit it. But yeah, the baby's the monster of the week, not the android. And the monster of the week doesn't get blown up this time. Sometimes it's not a policeman's job to take down the bad guys. Sometimes it's the policeman's job to save the kid, or to be the protector, as opposed to the I guess capturer. I don't know. Not captor is the person that gets captured. You get the idea. Not to bring down the bad guy, but to help the good guys. So it's really a interesting episode that helps subvert some ye old Super Sentai tropes, and I like that. Another thing to touch on this week really are the characters themselves, because over these episodes here, we're beginning to see how, even though our heroes are very much the Super Sentai tropes that go along with the colors, as we discussed last episode, each color basically has its own trope. And they vary from series to series. There's a couple of different stereotypes per colored hero, but typically red is the hothead, blue is cool, green is the awkward intellectual, yellow is the tomboy, pink is the princess. And in this series, they've really thus far done a very good job of melding those tropes to tropes of characters in police shows. So, for instance, we now see Bond not simply as the hot-headed cop, not simply as the hot-headed Red Ranger, he is the hot-headed rookie. He is the newest member of the team. And we see him as that aggressive, hell-bent for leather, very occasionally off-putting rookie who's trying to prove himself, and he's going to do it, however he has to. He's gung-ho. And so it's a really good melding of the two tropes. We see Blue, Hoji, the cool blue, very much a typical Super Sentai trope, but now it's the cool blue who is also the hard-boiled policeman. And those two meld very well. He is the professional. He has a sense of duty. He keeps his calm. He rarely gets emotional. And so those two tropes blend together very well. With Green being the awkward intellectual, he is also, in this case, the instinctual cop. In one of his focus episodes, we see where the rest of the team follows the obvious evidence of an investigation. Sen, our Green here, follows his instinct. There's a monster that hates cars, and he's cutting up cars. And that's really all he's doing. He's letting the civilians get out. He just wants to blow up cars because his family died in a car accident, and he hates cars. But there is another monster who has the ability to basically use water as a slicing tool, like a high-powered water jet. And she more or less uses the car-hating monster's modus operandi, his style of attack, as a way to frame him for the murder of her sister. She kills her own sister in the episode and tries to set up the other monster. Everyone else follows the obvious evidence, but Sen follows his instinct and follows his gut and falls into that realm. So he's the awkward intellectual, but he's the instinctual cop. He's the cop that will follow the hunch. So I think that's a cool melding of character tropes. With Yellow, Yellow is very much the tomboy, and Yellow is very much the compassionate female cop. Sort of the hard cop with the heart of gold type. And you don't see this, in overly mini shows, I guess. Maybe the best example I can think of in a current show that I've seen, because I don't watch a lot of cop shows, might be Agent May in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's a professional. She's going to do her job. She is not what you would think of the typical feminine female character. However, so she's got a lot of those tomboy tropes, but she's also got a heart, and she will follow her heart when the time comes to do so. That very much reminds me of Jasmine, our yellow in this series. And then finally, Umiko, our pink. She is very much the princess, and frankly, there's not too many princesses in cop shows, but we see her in many ways. I think she's the female version of Bond. So she's the rookie who, the would-be rookie. She was the rookie at one point, and she's still headstrong, and she's still hard-headed, and she still has a lot to prove. But she's been there for a second, and she's the established eccentric cop with strange habits and things like this. I think almost of Officer Gannon from the old Dragnet TV show. There's a cop show I did watch. With his peanut butter and garlic sandwiches, just weird idiosyncrasies and things like that. And we see that with Umiko and her always taking baths, and they have to be bubble baths and things like this. In fact, in the last episode here, in her focus episode, it starts off with her washing her hair, and when she gets called up to the patrol room to take the Deca machines out for this essentially disaster relief, she winds up showing up with her hair still covered in soap and upsetting Doggy Kruger with her eccentric unprofessionalism. So, very interesting melding of the characters, and that's what I think these 6 episodes were all about, was the further construction of the characters, further establishing the characters. So, not, like I said, not a whole lot to talk about as far as the overarching meta plot of the series, because thus far, let's face it, there's not one. They're slow rolling the hell out of it, which is fine, because the characters are engaging. Again, I have to praise the acting. The villain costumes, Monster of the Week costumes, are actually quite good at this point. Very early in the series, the first few episodes, a little dicey, but here in this next 6, we're seeing some really good bad guy costumes. Vino's costume is really cool. There's a character named Shake, who's the bad guy in Bond's focus episode, which has a stakeout in it. There's another police trope, but his costume is very good. So we're seeing some really cool costumes up to this point. And again, the music, I also have to praise that real quick, because the music really has a tendency to set the tone in any series. It's what you hear as the action goes on, and music can change a scene from funny to tragic in a heartbeat. And this series, which has a liberal dose of Psychic Lover, doing a number of insert songs, and of course the opening theme, their insert songs are very good, very high energy, very action-packed. But when the time comes for the old school police procedural instrumental, you've got that. When the time comes for the hard-boiled melancholy instrumental, you have that. When the time comes for the music to get a little sorrowful, the whole I don't want to do this, but I have to feel, then it goes in that direction. The music in this series is outstanding. So, so far, 12 episodes in, I'm reliving some really cool memories, and I'm glad that you're here to chat with me and talk about it. Want you to please leave your comments here below. Let us know what you think. Any feedback that you might have. Some of it might get discussed on the air. You never know. Of course, we are here on Facebook every Wednesday for DenziBlitz, and when we come back next week for episode 3, this episode will suddenly have appeared on YouTube. So definitely check that out. Another thing we want to know, I need to know the 3rd series that you want us to cover on DenziBlitz. As I said before, obviously we're doing Dekaranger now, and the next series we cover will be the series that got me into Kamen Rider, and I'll go ahead and spoil that now. It's going to be Kamen Rider Decade. That's the show that I actually got into Kamen Rider watching. I call it the Whitman Sampler Box of Kamen Rider, and we'll discuss that when we get to that show. But definitely let us know what you want me to watch for the third series that we cover here on DenziBlitz. Let us know what you think. Share, like, follow us here on Facebook, facebook.com/DenziCaster, DenziCaster. And if you are watching this on YouTube, this show always goes up 1 week early on our Facebook page. So jump over there, facebook.com/DenziCaster, facebook.com/DenziCaster. Check us out there. And if you do want to relive the episode, check it out on YouTube. Eventually these videos will fall off of our Facebook page as we put more on. So eventually the only place you're going to be able to see them will be on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube, though, because you'll get to see the DenziBlitz there, as well as all the other great shows in the ECS network and our regular DenziCaster shows. Right now, I believe next week, a week from this past Monday, you'll be seeing, I believe it's me and Roger talking about the first 2 episodes of Kamen Rider Amazons, plural. So check that out too. Until next time, folks, when we get through another batch of episodes of Tokusou Sentai Dekaranger, we continue our trek through this wonderful cop show. I'm Mike Brown, and we will see you next week on DenziBlitz.